Welcome, science enthusiasts. Today we're diving into a topic that touches both our hearts and our wallets, extending the lifespan of our beloved furry companions. And this isn't just about keeping Fido around longer. What's happening right now in pet longevity research could fundamentally change how we approach human aging as well. You know that gut-wrenching moment every dog owner dreads? Saying goodbye to a family member who's been by your side for what feels like a criminally short time. Well, what if I told you that scientists are on the verge of significantly extending that time together, potentially adding years of healthy life to our four-legged friends? Welcome to Apprentice.io's Industry Insights. I'm Frank Maggiore, and today we're exploring the fascinating world of canine longevity with a special focus on the groundbreaking work happening at a biotech company called Loyal, which has recently achieved some remarkable milestones with the FDA. Here's one of the curious paradoxes that's driving this research. Have you ever wondered why a Great Dane might live only 8 to 10 years, while a Chihuahua could reach 18 or even 20? It defies what we see in nature, where larger species typically live longer than smaller ones. Elephants outlive mice, whales outlive dolphins, so why do small dogs outlive the large ones? This biological puzzle isn't just interesting trivia, it's become the key to potentially unlocking new approaches to longevity. Scientists at Loyal have essentially identified the shortened lifespan in large dogs as a kind of accelerated aging disorder, not an inevitable fact of life, but something that could be potentially treated. And here's where things get really interesting. In November 2023, the FDA gave its first ever formal acceptance that a drug can be developed and approved specifically to extend lifespan. This wasn't for humans, it was for dogs. The regulatory body acknowledged that Loyal's canine longevity drug called LOY-001 has a reasonable expectation of effectiveness for extending the lives of large dogs. Why should you care, even if you're not a dog owner? Because this research represents a fascinating fast track to understanding human aging. Dogs share our environment, develop many of the same age-related diseases that we do, but conveniently, for research purposes, age about 7 to 10 times faster than what we do. This means breakthroughs in dog longevity could translate to human applications much more quickly than traditional research approaches. By the end of this episode, you'll understand how these canine longevity drugs work, why they're likely to reach the market years before human equivalents could, and how cloud-based manufacturing execution systems are crucial for bringing these therapies from lab to market, both for our own pets and eventually for ourselves. So grab your leash and let's take a walk through the cutting-edge world of longevity science, where man's best friend might just be leading the way to longer, healthier lives for all of us. Let's dive into what's actually happening biologically when dogs, particularly large breeds, age. And I promise this won't be like your high school biology class, though a little molecular biology never hurt anyone, right? First, let's tackle that old myth that 1 dog year equals 7 human years. This oversimplification has stuck around for decades, but the reality is much more nuanced. Small breeds might age at about 5 times the human rate, while large breeds can age at a whopping 10 times faster than what we do. That's why a 5-year-old Great Dane is already middle-aged, while a 5-year-old Chihuahua is still relatively young. This size lifespan relationship in dogs is actually backwards from what we see in most of the animal kingdom. Typically, larger species live longer than smaller ones. Elephants outlive mice, whales outlive fish. So what's going on with our canine companions? The answer lies largely in a hormone called Insulin-like growth factor 1, or IGF-1. This is one of the most well-studied longevity-related pathways across species, from tiny roundworms to humans. And here's the fascinating part. In most species, reducing IGF-1 extends healthy lifespan, while increasing it shortens lifespan as identified in Loyal's research. Large dog breeds have been selectively bred over centuries to grow big and fast. To achieve this rapid growth, they have significantly higher levels of IGF-1. While this helps them reach their impressive size, it comes with a hidden cost: accelerated aging. Celine Haliua, the founder and CEO of Loyal, describes this phenomenon as an unintentional genetic accelerated aging disorder that resulted from breeding dogs for size over hundreds of years. The research shows that by targeting and reducing these elevated IGF-1 levels in large dogs, they may be able to significantly extend their lifespans. Let's zoom out a bit and talk about the hallmarks of aging more broadly. Scientists have identified about a dozen key characteristics that define aging across species, including genomic instability, which is damage to DNA, telomere shortening, those protective caps on our chromosomes, epigenetic changes, alterations to how genes are expressed, loss of proteostasis, the body's ability to maintain protein quality, mitochondrial dysfunction, problems with our cellular power plants, cellular senescence, zombie cells that refuse to die properly, and altered metabolism, how efficiently we process nutrients. This last one, metabolism, is particularly relevant to the work being done by Loyal and other researchers. IGF-1 is directly involved in metabolic regulation, and the drugs being developed aim to address these age-related metabolic changes. In fact, the concept behind some of these longevity drugs is to mimic the effects of caloric restriction, one of the few interventions consistently shown to extend lifespans across different species. Studies have found that dogs kept on carefully restricted diets live about 2 years longer than their normally fed littermates, with delayed onset of diseases like cancer and arthritis. But obviously, dramatic lifelong caloric restriction isn't a practical or safe approach for most pets. That's where pharmaceutical interventions come in, delivering the benefits without the extreme dietary measures. The potential implications are profound. If we can effectively treat what amounts to an accelerated aging condition in large dogs, it opens the door to understanding similar processes in humans. It's like having a fast-forward button on aging research, potentially compressing what would take decades to study in humans into just a few years of canine research. Let's take a closer look at the 3 innovative drugs Loyal is developing to tackle canine aging. Think of these as 3 different approaches to solving the same problem. First up is LOY-001, which made headlines in November 2023 when the FDA determined it had a reasonable expectation of effectiveness for extending the lives of large dogs as announced by Loyal. This is a long-acting injectable treatment designed specifically for large and giant breed dogs weighing at least 40 pounds and aged 7 years or older. LOY-001 works by reducing those elevated IGF levels we discussed earlier. According to Celine Haliua, the drug can successfully reduce IGF-1 levels in the blood within just a week of administration. The injectable format means it would be administered by your veterinarian every 3 to 6 months. The second drug, LOY-002, takes a different approach. Rather than targeting solely large dog breeds, it's designed for senior dogs of almost all sizes, only excluding the very smallest breeds. This one comes as a daily beef-flavored pill for dogs aged 10 years or older and weighing at least 14 pounds. LOY-002 is what scientists call a caloric restriction mimetic. Remember how we mentioned that caloric restriction can extend lifespan but is impractical for most pets? LOY-002 aims to deliver those same benefits pharmaceutically through a pill without causing weight loss or appetite suppression. It targets age-associated metabolic dysfunction, which affects dogs as they get older regardless of size. Importantly, in February 2025, LOY-002 also received the FDA's acceptance of its reasonable expectation of effectiveness application, making it the second longevity drug from Loyal to reach this significant milestone, as announced in their FDA acceptance press release. The third drug in development, LOY-003, is essentially an alternative delivery method for the same mechanism as LOY-001. It's a daily pill that targets IGF-1 levels in large dogs and giant breeds, providing an option for owners who might prefer a pill over an injection. Let's talk about what this FDA milestone really means. The reasonable expectation of effectiveness, or RXE designation, is a crucial part of the FDA's conditional approval process for animal drugs. It essentially means that the FDA has reviewed the company's data and scientific arguments and agrees that there's reasonable expectation the drug will work as claimed. This is particularly significant because these are the first and second drugs ever to receive this designation specifically for extending lifespan, not just treating a disease, but actually extending how long animals live. As Linda Rhodes, a veterinarian and animal health expert, put it, no drug has ever been approved with such a claim, and pioneering a new indication through regulatory agencies requires an enormous amount of rigor and persistence. What's remarkable about Loyal's approach is that they're not treating aging as an inevitable decline, but a potentially modifiable biological process. Their drugs don't just aim to add years to a dog's life, but to extend their health span, the period of life spent in good health, free from disease and disability. The company expects both LOI-001 and LOI-003 to be available under conditional approval by 2026, while LOI-002 could potentially reach the market even sooner, possibly by early 2025, according to Lab Biotech's report. And they're aiming to make these treatments reasonably affordable, in the double digits per month according to Hallmarks, rather than thousands of dollars that would put them out of reach for most pet owners. This multi-pronged approach gives Loyal a unique position in the emerging field of longevity medicine, addressing different aspects of canine aging with tailored interventions based on size, age, and owner preference. It's like having a personalized longevity plan for our furry friends. Let's talk about how these promising drugs are being tested and what data we're seeing so far. The crown jewel of Loyal's clinical testing program is the STAY study, the largest veterinary clinical trial in history, and the first FDA-concurred clinical trial specifically for longevity. This ambitious project aims to enroll over 1,000 dogs from approximately 70 veterinary clinics across the United States to test the effectiveness of LOI-002 in extending healthy lifespan in older dogs, as described in DMV 360, a veterinary medicine site, and Business Wire reports. The first dog to participate in this historic trial was an 11-year-old Whippet named Boo, who received his first dose in December 2023. Since then, veterinary clinics nationwide have been recruiting and enrolling eligible canine participants. The study design is what scientists call a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, the gold standard for clinical research. Half the enrolled dogs receive the beef-flavored LOI-002 pill, while the other half gets a placebo pill that looks and tastes identical. Neither the owner nor the veterinarians know which dogs are getting the active drug, ensuring that the results aren't influenced by expectations. What makes this trial particularly significant is the scope and duration. The STAY study is expected to run for approximately 4 years, collecting comprehensive data on the drug's impact on lifespan, quality of life, and any potential side effects. The researchers are not just looking at how long the dogs live, but at their overall health and function throughout their senior years. Beyond just testing the drug's effectiveness, Loyal is also building a longitudinal biobank of saliva and blood samples from participating dogs. This valuable research will support future research into canine and potentially human aging, creating a treasure trove of data that could lead to additional breakthroughs. In parallel to Loyal's work, there's another major research initiative called the Dog Aging Project, led by the University of Washington and Texas A&M University. This project is tracking the aging process of tens of thousands of companion dogs across the U.S. to identify the genetic, environmental, and lifestyle factors that influence healthy aging and longevity. The Dog Aging Project has also been testing the drug rapamycin, which has consistently extended the lifespan in laboratory mice and other organisms. Rapamycin works by inhibiting a protein called mTOR, mechanistic target of rapamycin, which is a central regulator of cell growth and metabolism across species. Early studies have shown promising results, with dog owners reporting increased activity in pets receiving rapamycin compared to those on placebo. In the field of interventional drug research, we're also seeing interesting data from North Carolina State University, where researchers tested a senolytic, a drug that clears senescent cells, and NAD plus precursor combination on senior dogs with mild to moderate cognitive impairment. The study showed significant improvement in owner-assessed cognitive function over a 3-month period in dogs receiving the full dose treatment compared to placebo. These various research programs, while taking different approaches, all share the same common goal of extending healthy canine lifespan. And importantly, they're all generating data that could potentially inform human longevity research down the line. For dog owners interested in possibly enrolling their pets in these studies, both Loyal and the Dog Aging Project maintain information on their websites about eligibility criteria and participating clinics. Generally, dogs need to be in good health without pre-existing conditions that would interfere with the study, and they need to meet the age and weight requirements specifically to each program. As Dr. Ellen Radcliffe, VP of Clinical and Veterinary Medicine at Loyal, emphasized, completing enrollment and collecting data over the next several years is critical. But the FDA's acceptance of the RxE applications represents validation from one of the highest quality regulatory agencies in the world that the drug we're testing has a reasonable expectation of extending a dog's life. Now let's explore one of the most fascinating aspects about this research: why canine longevity drugs are likely to reach the market years before similar treatments for humans, and why this matters for human longevity research. There's a simple but powerful truth at play here. The regulatory pathway for veterinary medicines is significantly less complex and time-consuming than it is for human drugs. This isn't because animal health is taken less seriously, but because the risk-benefit calculations and ethical considerations are different. The FDA Center for Veterinary Medicine, CVM, has created a pathway called Expanded Conditional Approval, specifically designed to accelerate the availability of innovative therapies for animals. This pathway allows drugs that demonstrate a reasonable expectation of effectiveness to reach the market, while definitive effectiveness data is still being collected, as long as safety has been established. For drugs like LOI-001 and LOI-002, which are targeting a complex endpoint like lifespan extension, this pathway is ideal. As Loyal CEO Celine Haliua explained, as there was no established regulatory path for a lifespan extension drug, we had to design from scratch a scientifically strong and logistically feasible way to demonstrate efficacy of an aging drug. The company's more than 2,300-page technical section that gained FDA's acceptance included interventional studies in FDA-accepted models of canine aging, as well as observational studies of hundreds of dogs. This comprehensive approach convinced regulators that the drugs were likely to be effective in the real world, despite the inherent challenges of definitively proving lifespan extension in a traditional trial timeframe. By contrast, if a company were developing a similar drug for humans, the regulatory hurdles would be much, much higher. Human clinical trials typically proceed through multiple phases over many years, and for a longevity drug, demonstrating effectiveness would be extraordinarily challenging. How do you even prove something that extends human lifespan without waiting decades? This is where the unique value of dog studies come into play. Dogs experience nearly every functional decline and disease of aging that humans do, but on a compressed timeline. As Matt Kaberlein, co-director of the Dog Aging Project, put it, dogs are probably the most powerful model for studying the biology of aging. According to research published in Mammalian Genome, they provide an unparalleled opportunity to study interventions in a species that shares our environment and develops similar age-related conditions, but ages fast enough to see results within a reasonable time frame. Dogs also offer significant advantages over traditional laboratory animals like mice. While mice have provided valuable insights into basic aging mechanisms, they're poor predictors of human responses to many drugs. They live in sterile lab environments, have been inbred for research purposes, and don't naturally develop many of the age-related diseases that afflict humans. Dogs, on the other hand, live in our homes, breathe the same air, and often eat similar foods, and are exposed to the same environmental stressors. This shared environment makes them uniquely valuable for translational research. Additionally, the extreme diversity of dog breeds, from tiny Chihuahuas to massive Great Danes, provides natural experiments in genetics and aging that simply don't exist in other research models. This diversity allows scientists to identify genetic factors influencing longevity that might be applicable across species. The implications for human longevity research are profound. Successful canine longevity drugs could provide a proof of concept that aging itself is treatable, potentially accelerating human research. The biological pathways being targeted, like IGF-1 signaling and metabolic regulation, are highly conserved across mammals, suggesting that what works in dogs might well work in humans too. In essence, the Canine Longevity Fast Track isn't just about helping our pets live longer. It's about creating a bridge between basic laboratory research and potential human applications, potentially saving decades of research time. Let's talk about the nitty-gritty of bringing these promising therapies from the laboratory to the living room, the manufacturing challenges that must be overcome to make these drugs widely available. Manufacturing biologics and novel therapeutics isn't like producing aspirin tablets. These complex medications require specialized facilities, precise processes, and stringent quality control measures. For companies like Loyal, scaling production from clinical trials to market presents several significant challenges. First, there's the issue of consistent manufacturing of active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs. Many longevity drugs target complex biological pathways and may involve either biological components or sophisticated small molecules. Ensuring batch-to-batch consistency is critical. Dogs receiving LOI-001 in Florida need to get the exact same therapeutic effect as those in Oregon. For LOI-001, which is an injectable product, there are additional sterility and stability concerns. Injectable products must be manufactured in highly controlled environments to prevent contamination. The long-acting nature of this medication also means that the release kinetics must be carefully controlled to ensure the therapy delivers consistent results over months rather than releasing too quickly or too slowly. The oral formulations, LOI-002 and LOI-003, face different challenges, ensuring bioavailability, how efficiently the drug gets into the bloodstream, stability on the shelf, and palatability for canine patients. After all, the most effective medicine in the world doesn't help if your dog won't take it. Then there's the question of scale. Current production for clinical trials involves relatively small batches of medication, enough for hundreds or perhaps a few thousand dogs. But if these therapies receive FDA approval as expected, demand will likely surge. Suddenly, manufacturing capacity would need to expand dramatically to serve potentially millions of dogs worldwide. This rapid scaling presents both technical and logistical challenges. Production equipment needs to be modified for larger batches while maintaining the same quality. Supply chains must be established for raw materials in much greater quantities. Quality control procedures must adapt to handle increased testing volume without creating bottlenecks. Another unique challenge with longevity medications is the extended time frame for stability testing. Since these products aim to be used throughout a pet's senior years, they need to remain stable and effective over long periods. Accelerated stability testing helps, but real-time data is ultimately needed to ensure these medications remain potent and safe on pharmacy shelves. Regulatory compliance adds another layer of complexity. Manufacturing facilities must meet current good manufacturing practices, CGMP standards, with comprehensive documentation of every aspect of production. For novel therapeutics like these longevity drugs, regulatory agencies may require additional validation studies or manufacturing controls beyond what's typical for more established drug classes. Finally, there's the challenge of cost-effective production. To make these treatments accessible to most pet owners, companies need to optimize manufacturing efficiency without compromising quality. This might involve investment in automated systems, continuous manufacturing technologies, or other innovations to reduce production costs. All these manufacturing challenges must be addressed while maintaining rigorous timelines. The FDA's acceptance of reasonable expectation of effectiveness for LOI-001 and LOI-002 has set the clock ticking. Loyal now needs to complete the manufacturing and safety sections of their conditional approval applications to bring these products to market on schedule. Successfully navigating these manufacturing hurdles isn't just important for canine health. It establishes processes and precedents that could eventually benefit human longevity research. The lessons learned in scaling production of these veterinary medicines could provide valuable insights for future human therapeutics targeting similar pathways. This is where cloud-based manufacturing execution systems, MES, become absolutely critical to the success of these novel therapeutics. For those who aren't familiar, an MES is essentially the brain of the manufacturing operation, coordinating, monitoring, and documenting every aspect of production. And for complex biologics and novel therapeutics, like these longevity drugs, traditional paper-based systems simply can't cut it. Think of manufacturing these drugs like orchestrating a symphony, dozens of instruments playing in perfect harmony. A cloud-based manufacturing execution system is the conductor, ensuring every section plays exactly on cue, with real-time feedback if anything falls out of tune. Let's explore why these systems are transformative for longevity drug production. First, let's talk about electronic batch records. Every batch of medication produced must have comprehensive documentation of raw materials, processing parameters, in-process testing, and final product testing. For complex therapeutics like LOI-001, this might involve hundreds of parameters across dozens of processing steps. A cloud-based manufacturing execution system captures all this data automatically, eliminating manual data entry errors and providing complete traceability. For Loyal's injectable, LOI-001, precision manufacturing is particularly critical. This drug needs to maintain its extended release properties consistently to provide the 3 to 6 month duration of action. and MES can monitor critical process parameters like temperature, pressure, and mixing speeds in real time, alerting operators immediately if any parameters drift outside acceptable ranges. Quality control becomes exponentially more efficient with a sophisticated MES. Instead of waiting until the end of production to discover issues, in-process testing results can be instantly evaluated against specifications. This real-time quality monitoring reduces waste and ensures that manufacturing issues are caught early before they compromise an entire batch. Regulatory compliance is another area where MES shines. The FDA's expanded conditional approval pathway still requires rigorous documentation and validation. A cloud-based manufacturing execution system maintains audit trails of every user action, document change, and process adjustment, creating the comprehensive data package needed for regulatory submissions. For novel therapeutics like longevity drugs, where regulatory requirements may evolve, the flexibility of modern MES platforms allows for rapid adaptation to changing demands. Supply chain management is particularly critical for biologics manufacturing. An integrated MES can track raw material lots, monitor inventory levels, and coordinate just-in-time delivery of components. This becomes especially important when scaling from clinical trial production to commercial manufacturing, where supply chain disruptions could threaten product availability. Perhaps most importantly for novel therapeutics, a cloud-based MES provides valuable data analytics capabilities. By analyzing production data across multiple batches, manufacturers can identify processes, optimization opportunities, and refine their techniques. This continuous improvement process is essential for maximizing efficiency and reducing costs, ultimately making these longevity treatments more affordable for pet owners. The scalability of cloud-based MES platforms is particularly valuable for companies like Loyal. As they transition from clinical trial production to commercial manufacturing, their MES can scale with them, accommodating increased volume without requiring a complete system redesign. This flexibility supports rapid market expansion if these therapies prove as successful as expected. For treatments like LOI-002 and LOI-003 that come in oral formulations, an MES can help manage the complexities of ensuring consistent drug dissolution and bioavailability across batches. Parameter monitoring during tableting or encapsulation ensures that each pill provides the same therapeutic effect. Finally, a sophisticated MES supports the manufacturing agility needed for innovative companies pushing scientific boundaries. As Loyal continues researching and potentially expanding their product line, their manufacturing systems need to accommodate new formulations, dosage forms, or active ingredients efficiently. A well-designed MES provides the flexibility to adapt manufacturing processes without starting from scratch. In an industry where precision documentation and consistency are non-negotiable, cloud-based manufacturing execution system platforms aren't just nice to have, they're essential infrastructure for turning scientific breakthroughs into widely available treatments. The companies that master this technological aspect of drug development will have a significant competitive advantage in bringing these life-extending therapies to our pets and eventually, perhaps, to ourselves. Now let's explore what might be the most exciting aspect of this work: how research on extending canine lifespans could eventually translate to human applications. The concept of translational medicine, moving discoveries from laboratory to clinical application, faces numerous hurdles, but the path from veterinary medicine to human health offers some unique advantages that could help accelerate the development of human longevity treatments. First, the biological similarities between dogs and humans runs deep. Despite the obvious differences in appearance and lifespan, we share remarkably similar physiology, disease processes, and aging mechanisms. Both species develop many of the same age-related conditions, from arthritis and cognitive decline to heart disease and cancer. This means that interventions targeting fundamental processes of aging in dogs may well work through the same mechanisms in humans. The IGF-1 pathway that Loyal is targeting with LOI-001 and LOI-003 is highly conserved across mammals and has been associated with longevity in multiple species. Studies have shown that certain human centenarians, people who live to 100 or beyond, naturally have lower levels of IGF-1, similar to what these drugs aim to achieve in large dogs. This biological overlap suggests that drugs proven effective in dogs might eventually find application in human medicine. But perhaps the most powerful advantage of using dogs as a translational model comes from their compressed aging timeline. While human clinical trials for longevity would need to run for decades to demonstrate life extension, canine studies can show meaningful results within just a few years. This accelerated timeline means that multiple iterations and refinements of longevity interventions can be evaluated in dogs within the span of a single human clinical trial. Additionally, companion dogs offer significant advantages over purpose-bred laboratory animals. They live in diverse environments, consume varied diets, experience different stressors, and have distinct genetic backgrounds, much like the human population. This natural variation actually strengthens the relevance of positive findings, suggesting that treatments effective across this diverse canine population might similarly work across varied human populations. The regulatory pathways also creates interesting opportunities for translational research. Veterinary medicines that gain FDA approval generate substantial safety and efficacy data that can inform human drug development. Companies can leverage this existing data when designing human clinical trials, potentially streamlining the process. Several companies are already pursuing this parallel development strategy. For example, Loyal isn't just focused on canine applications, their research into biological mechanisms of aging has potential human applications as well. Celine Haliua has acknowledged that successful canine longevity drugs could eventually inform human therapeutic development. Similarly, Unity Biotechnology has been developing senolytics, drugs that clear senescent cells for both veterinary and human applications. Their approach targets one of the fundamental hallmarks of aging that's relevant across species. By advancing both tracks simultaneously, they could potentially apply insights from veterinary medicine to accelerate human therapeutic development. The economic incentives also align for this translational approach. The pet healthcare market represents a substantial opportunity in its own right, with Americans spending over $34 billion annually on veterinary care. This means companies can potentially generate revenue from veterinary applications while continuing to develop human therapeutics, creating a more sustainable business model than the traditional high-risk, delayed-reward paradigm of human drug development. There are cultural advantages to this approach as well. The concept of anti-aging treatments in humans sometimes faces skepticism or ethical debates. By contrast, extending the healthy lifespan of beloved pets is almost universally viewed positively. Successful veterinary longevity treatments could help normalize the concept of intervening in the aging process, potentially easing the eventual acceptance of similar approaches in human medicine. Of course, significant differences between canine and human physiology, metabolism, and lifespan mean that not everything will translate directly. Dosing and delivery methods and specific formulations will require substantial adaptation for human application. Regulatory requirements for human therapeutics remain far more stringent. But the core biological insights about how to slow aging at a fundamental level could prove invaluable. The path from veterinary to human medicine isn't a shortcut. It's a strategic parallel track that could ultimately accelerate progress for both species. As we learn how to extend the healthy lives of our canine companions, we may simultaneously be laying the groundwork for extending our own. As we wrap up our exploration of canine longevity research, let's look ahead to what the next decade might bring for both our pets and ourselves. For pet owners, the timeline to market for these longevity drugs is particularly exciting. Loyal is projecting that LOY-002 could be available under conditional approval as early as 2025, with LOY-001 and LOY-003 following in 2026. This means within just a couple of years, pet owners could have access to FDA-approved treatments specifically designed to extend their dogs' healthy lifespans. The initial target market will be substantial. There are approximately 48 million dogs in the US alone that are over age 7, with about 15 million senior dogs that would be candidates for LOY-002. For large breed dogs that would benefit from LOY-001 or LOY-003, we're talking about millions of potential patients who currently face shortened lifespans compared to their smaller counterparts. Pricing will be a critical factor in adoption. Loyal has indicated they're aiming for double digits per month for their treatments, putting them in the range of other chronic medications for pets. At this price point, these therapies would be accessible to a significant portion of pet owners, especially considering the emotional value of additional healthy years with a beloved companion. As these products gain market acceptance, we'll likely see increased competition and innovation in the pet longevity space. Other companies will undoubtedly enter the market with alternative approaches targeting different mechanisms of aging. This competition should drive both improved efficacy and more affordable options over time. The data generated from the widespread use of these treatments in pets will be invaluable for advancing the science of aging more broadly. Real-world evidence from tens or hundreds of thousands of dogs will provide insights that no laboratory study could match, potentially identifying new biomarkers of aging or unexpected benefits of these interventions. For human applications, the timeline is naturally longer, but the pathway is becoming clearer. The biological insights gained from successful canine therapies will inform human drug development, potentially accelerating the identification of promising candidates. Safety data from widespread veterinary use will provide additional confidence for human clinical trials. We're likely to see the first human clinical trials specifically targeting fundamental mechanisms of aging expanding significantly in the next 5 to 10 years, with treatments potentially reaching the market in the 10 to 15 year time frame. The economic implications are staggering. Even modest extensions of healthy human lifespan could dramatically reduce healthcare costs associated with age-related diseases, which currently account for the vast majority of medical expenditures in developed nations. From a manufacturing perspective, the scaling challenges faced and solved for veterinary products will establish valuable precedents for human applications. Cloud-based manufacturing execution system platforms that successfully manage the production of canine longevity drugs will evolve to handle the even more stringent requirements of human pharmaceuticals. The industry will develop more sophisticated approaches to quality control, supply chain management, and regulatory compliance that benefit both veterinary and human medicine. Perhaps most profoundly, this research is changing how we think about aging itself. Rather than simply accepting it as an inevitable decline, scientists are increasingly viewing aging as a biological process that can be modified, slowed, delayed, or even partially reversed in some aspects. This conceptual shift opens the door to entirely new approaches to health and medicine for all species. The investment in extending canine health span isn't just about our love for dogs, though that would be reason enough. It's about creating a bridge between basic laboratory research and human applications, potentially saving decades of time in the development of human longevity treatments. Our canine companions who have been by our sides throughout human history may once again be leading the way, this time towards longer, healthier lives for us all. As Celine Haliua, founder and CEO of Loyal, puts it, everything we do is in the service of helping dogs live longer, healthier lives. But in that pursuit, these pioneering companies may just be laying the groundwork to help humans live longer, healthier lives as well. In an industry where precision and compliance are paramount, Apprentice's Tempo platform offers a cutting-edge manufacturing execution system solution. It's cloud-based, mobile-first, operator-centric, with the most intuitive UI in the industry, making it perfect for today's dynamic pharmaceutical manufacturing environments and for the production of the world's most complex drug products. Whether you're working on groundbreaking cell and gene therapies, biologics, or small molecules, Tempo provides a fully validated MES system that's both powerful and easy to use. It streamlines your processes, ensures compliance, and adapts to your specific manufacturing needs. So get off of paper batch records and discover how Apprentice's Tempo Manufacturing Cloud can transform your operations by visiting us at apprentice.io. Attention industry professionals, revolutionize your manufacturing process with the Apprentice Tempo Manufacturing Cloud, a manufacturing execution system built to streamline your operations, boost efficiency, and ensure compliance all in one powerful platform. Experience the future of manufacturing with our free 30-day trial. Scan the QR code on your screen now to unlock a world of innovation. Don't just keep pace, set the tempo as an industry leader with Apprentice. The photo on the thumbnail is of my sister's dog, which is a corgi. This particular photo was taken on her wedding day when he was dressed up in a suit. Amusingly enough, her corgi's name is Frankie, so me and the dog share the same name, which can be confusing sometimes when we go for a visit. It was my sister who suggested this episode as she wanted to learn more about the topic and see if this is something she should start thinking about for Frankie. Hopefully, we get some positive clinical trial data from the study, and that is available sometime soon on the market. And thank you, Jen, for an awesome topic to cover. Let me know if you like the new format, if you want to see less of my giant head and more of the slide format to follow along with future episodes. That's all for Apprentice.io's Industry Insight. I'm Frank Maggiore. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for notifications when new episodes drop. Please comment on if you have any additional topics you would like for me to cover in this space, and we'll see you next week for more Industry Insights.